Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Another episode of On the Wrong Lead Live where we go ahead and take a look at the weekend stakes racing. And got the usual crew here together. We'll just go ahead and introduce Mr. Mark Capitan first. Mark, how are you doing, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing good. Doing good. Been a fun week. We got opening week at Keeneland, albeit slightly delayed. We had Dubai World Cup last weekend. We had a bunch of Derby preps. Lots of good racing. You know, we're finally getting back in that point of the year where it's like, oh, it's not, Winter Duct and Gulfstream Park. It's like, oh, hey, there's actually like legit horse racing, and this doesn't suck and it's not terrible. And it's been a lot of fun. It's nice to get some good stuff back.
Yeah, and I believe I'm going to introduce our other compatriot who just like I think he's at the the second stage of Keeneland, right? The first stage of Keeneland is the excitement. The second stage of Keeneland is what do we like? I hate this track. Yeah, Mr. Caleb Knight. Caleb, how you doing?
Doing good, man. I think I'm like one race away from them having to like build me a statue in front of Keeneland's paddock because I've been all over that track this week.
Yeah. It's been kind of a, as much egg as I've had on my face for the Derby prep season, with I don't know, taking every single Baffert known to man and just like looking like an idiot. Rodriguez finally came through, but more importantly, Mark, you and I hit pretty big last week on a long shot in the Dubai World Cup there by our boy Hit Show. Getting up at 40 to 1 or whatever we ended up getting.
Finally delivered for us. So no, it was very good. I had a very good tournament weekend. I was skiing, but collected some tournaments. I know you had some, I think, win money on them, and I think you had some other maybe doubles into them or something. Like I know you did very well with Hit Show, so it was a good weekend all the way around. Just on Dubai. So,
and then I mean, Caleb, for as much as you've been snake bitten. Oh, you just happened to cash about $2,000 or so on a contest earlier this week too. So
yeah,
well, then he cashed another 700 today. So
yeah,
I mean,
700 the last couple of days with the bluegrass
Crimea River,
but and then
wiping his tears with hundreds over there.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, I mean, Dubai was a bit of a weird card. I put in the chat for one of our group chats, like, I don't see how this late pick 4 can pay more than like $20 with Romantic Warrior and Forever Young and either Tuz or Straight No Chaser, and like I think it paid like 23,000 for 20 cents.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was speaking of egg on your face.
Yeah. It was funny because we were talking about covering that sequence. I know Caleb was like, "No, it's going to chalk out. It's going to be terrible." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, Caleb. Whatever, cool." And then I wouldn't have had a couple of the plays in there, but it was it ended up being pretty spicy. There's a lot of kind of sure thing big names that they got beat in that card. So interesting.
The funniest part I think of last weekend for me though was the fact that I gave out Hit Show at 40 to 1 to all my friends in the FIFA Discord, and like none of them knew that it hit. And then like these guys are just like right, and these are guys who are betting who bet like $5, right? So like they're just like, holy cow, right? They're like coming back with like $200 to $400 winner tickets, and they're like, I felt bad for one guy because he only got 33 to 1. He got screwed a little bit, but
it's gotta be tough. I mean, he's gonna have to struggle through the the tears, right? Like it's
Russ saying to repeat from last week. If I go to the UK, I don't have to pay for a single drink. Yeah, I hopefully I have a couple of pints waiting for me whenever I get over there. But all right, we talked a little bit about Dubai briefly. UAE Derby, I don't think anything's coming out of that race. Mark, Caleb, do you guys think anything out of that race?
The winner to ship to is in Churchill now. They're going to go through and they plan to run, but I don't think that horse is that good. I think that's kind of a race that you can kind of disregard. So I mean, unless he shows up and is just working like a monster and really is taking a step forward, I think that race came up pretty not that great.
Yeah, it was a super slow time, even relative to other races on the card.
Yeah,
I don't think anything has a chance of the Derby coming out of that race.
I mean, even bigger surprise, I think, was the fact that Brad Cox horse basically didn't run a step. And, that was kind of interesting because we were kind of like, why is he shipping this horse over there, right? Because he had run really nicely at Aqueduct earlier. So, like, why are you shipping him over there? And turns out that's why.
We know. Yeah, now we know.
I guess we'll start with the more recent one, Bluegrass. Anything? You guys take anything away from that race, Caleb? I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think my real takeaway from that race is that it changes the complexion of the Derby. Because I think going into the Kentucky Derby, I kept saying all the strongest horses are kind of closers. You have Sandman, you have Journalism's maybe kind of mid-pack. You have horses like Tiz-tastic, Publisher. You've got a lot. I can't remember a couple of the others, but most of your like higher, more highly regarded horses were closers, and there just wasn't that much speed in the race. Well, East Avenue went out there and took them pretty far on the front end through some pretty honest fractions. Showed that 2-year-old season he had was not just a fluke. Eventually did get caught, and I don't think I really like him in the Derby necessarily, but I do think that he changes the complexion of the Derby because he brings legitimate front-running speed to that race. He is obviously a dead set need to lead type who you can't rate even at all. So I think that's a big development for the Derby. If you like a closer in the Derby, I think your chances just got a lot better. If you were hoping that Rodriguez goes out there and steals it, I think you're going to have to work out a new trip. But and to talk to the winner, Burnham Square ran well. I'm still not totally sure what to think of the Burnham Square Tappan Street duo. I mean, they've won some of the biggest preps and have kind of competed against each other. Sovereignty's in that mix too, but I'm still just not sure how much I think of them. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think my take is similar to probably Caleb's, but I think anybody coming out of that Bluegrass, I'm really not interested in betting anybody out of that race in the Derby. I think other preps were a lot stronger. I think as soon as the race finished, my first reply in our group chat was, "Yeah, you didn't see your Derby winner there." So nobody blew me away. I do think it does, as Caleb said, it does affect the pace complexion, but I don't think you saw your winner on that race. I think your winner comes from someplace else.
Yeah, I was on Burnham Square last time out, and I couldn't get there this time. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that horse. I still contend that the winner of the Derby is probably coming out of either Louisiana or California.
Agreed.
But speaking of California, why don't we talk about the Santa Anita Derby? Very, very impressive win there by Journalism. Looks to be going to be the favorite in the Derby going into it right now. Mark, what do you think?
I think he's your rightful Derby favorite at this point in time. I think he's shown up, and Caleb can probably talk in better lengths about the games that were played to prevent him from winning, but he did everything he had to do. He was really impressive. They tried to make it extremely tough for him in that race, and he just showed up and delivered. So I think he's probably your rightful Derby favorite, and I have a hard time arguing with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you watch that race back, the Bafferts were certainly playing games there. It's very apparent Barnes was not in that race actually to win it. He was simply in there to play offensive lineman and try to keep Journalism hemmed in as long as he could. And Journalism did get into trouble. I mean, it looks like he kind of lost his stride a little bit and checked a bit and started to fall back through the field. And then once he was able to get out wide, just an amazing run there. I mean, I thought that was extremely impressive. He is their Derby favorite. I don't think there's any question about that. And he is the most likely winner. He's definitely the horse that's impressed me the most. It's not super creative to take the chalk, but as it stands today, I think he would be my Derby pick as well. Hope Beza gets in. I know everybody's saying that. This is a a colt that has a lot of upside, absolutely royally bred pedigree, and needs some help because the points were reduced in the Santa Anita Derby due to the short field. But would love to see Beza get in if we can get a couple of defections.
Yeah, what Baze is probably like 5th in line right now.
Yeah, 37.5 points, I think, is what he has. And you'll probably need 50 to get the gate right now. I know they said that Owen Almighty is not going. Getaway Car is not going. There's a couple others. So yeah, it might need some. There's always a few dropouts like the week of Derby, so it'll be good to see kind of how that all shakes out. But I hope he gets in.
All right, and then lastly, we have the Wood Memorial, which had Rodriguez win that wire to wire. Now, Caleb, I know you said you don't like his chances now with it, but what if I told you got 107 to 1? You like that price a little bit better than what he's going to be in the Derby?
Yeah, you got a chance to root for that 107 to 1 futures bet. 107 to 1 Rodriguez. I've got 80 to 1 on Tistastic. So we got some action going in the Derby, but yeah, I thought Rodriguez ran a good race. I thought he kind of had the race handed to him when some of the other speeds didn't go. He was able to get out there on the front and just kind of relax a little bit. And but he ran a good race, and it came back with the fast time. So, I will say that I certainly prefer him to Citizen Bull, given what I've just seen. But keeping in mind, he also got beat by Journalism by 10 lengths last time they faced. So I do think I'm not quite sure how good the Wood was. Grande is a horse that I would keep an eye on, the runner-up, who had a really, really wide trip the entire way. I mean, he lost a lot of ground around the turns, trying to close into a Baffert loose on the lead, always pretty tough. I'm not sure that I love him in the Derby necessarily, but he's one that I'd keep an eye on down the road.
So there are only 2 horses that have run multiple 100+ buyers as 3-year-olds. One is Journalism, the other one's Rodriguez, which is pretty wild. Mark, what did you think?
Nothing beyond what you guys really kind of said. I thought Rodriguez looked great. He definitely brings a lot of pace complexion into the Derby. I don't really have any sort of smart comments about it yet. I really need to kind of wait and see what the final field looks like and what pace complexion looks like in the Derby. Obviously rooting for you guys with your stupid prop bets at crazy prices. So hopefully you guys can cash some of those. But I really need to see how it comes together first.
I got to see what my probable is on the Citizen Bull Rodriguez exactly.
How much you have on Rodriguez? Is it like 20?
Only $20, yeah.
Dude, still, that's cool.
I mean, at 107 to 1, I'm not going to sneeze at that.
It also is one of those things that keeps you really vested. You had that bet early, and you're paying attention, and you're having fun with it. Like, that's cool. There's a lot to be said about that.
All right, cool. Well, let's. Why don't we start looking at some of these races here? We're going to start here at Oak Lawn. We have 2. I mean, we have 2 graded stakes races. One is, I think they're both interesting viewing races, but I mean, I think in the Count Fleet, I got a horse that I might bet to win depending on price. But I mean, your overwhelming favorite is going to be the 3 Booth. It's 3 to 5 on the morning line. I think, I think it's just, I don't know. This is a horse that's just been continuously improving, especially, since coming back here to this Oak Lawn meet. I think is going to be pretty tough in here, but I do have a horse I kind of like. Any of you other guys looking at anybody besides Booth in this race?
I am, for one. I mean, I think Booth is your most likely winner, and nothing against Booth. If he runs back to his last out figure, he's going to be very, very, very tough in here. But the other horse, it depends how Speed is playing. If Speed is very, very good come this coming Saturday, Booth is probably the kind of lone A type horse that you definitely lean on. But the horse I'm a little interested in at a bit of a price, and I just wonder if the morning line is just terrible, is the 1 horse Devil's Tower, who's a horse that, he's had some first off, he loves Oaklawn. He's 8 of 15 across the track. Loves this trip. This is, he's 17 of 34 going this trip. And he's had some figures that are really, really competitive with somebody like Booth. Only a couple points slower on the time form figs. I don't think he's definitely not a desperate need the lead type. He could kind of inherit a really nice trip in here. Booth's going to go to the front end, and if speed isn't gold, he might just sit that perfect pocket trip, and have a little bit of say come the lane at a pretty big price. So I thought Devil's Tower was the other horse in here that I really wanted to have a little money going through.
Caleb?
Yeah, I don't have much interest in this race. I think Booth is the horse to beat. He's progressed in every start since December, essentially. He's kind of inched forward every time. Rattled off 2 just monster races. I was against him in the Whitmore because I thought, after that last big effort in the Commodore, I wasn't sure if that was legit or if he might regress off of that or bounce. He did get a pretty soft trip, but nevertheless, I mean, he ran back to kind of prove that Commodore effort was no fluke. I think he's the horse to beat in here. I'd like to take a shot against him, but I just don't see the pace pressure in here that I would need to go to one of the closers. The biggest threat on the front end is his stablemate Rivet, and it's kind of hard to imagine Asmussen sending both of his horses with both of his sons out there to duel and make each other lose the race. So I kind of struggle to. I love Teano Twist. That's such a cool horse. You always know you get a big run there at the end with him, but I just don't see the pace really setting up for anybody else besides Booth this race. I like Mark's pick in Devil's Tower. I think he's fine. I think some of those good races have come against, a lot cheaper, at Hawthorne, FanDuel,
totally.
Starter allowance races. So I would need a big number to go there, but he's one that maybe you can work in underneath or something. But for me, I don't think Booth loses.
Yeah. I'm taking a page out of Chase's booth or Chase's book, and I'm going to take a closer in the sprint. I actually kind of like Payne in this race. I thought
probably going to scratch, right?
You think so?
He just ran 6 days ago. I mean,
I'm pretty sure he scratches, but
okay. If he scratches, then never mind. But the reason I kind of liked him was because of that last race. I thought that was kind of an off race because he kind of got the muddy going there. I think the race 2 back, if he's able to run something closer to that, he would actually kind of fit in here. But yeah, if he scratches, then I absolutely want nothing to do in this race. So, but moving on, race 11, Apple Blossom, grade 1, and this is going to be just a fun race to watch, right? This is we're going to go ahead and we're going to see Torpedo Anna come back here and run again. I mean, is there even any reason to try and beat this horse in the spot?
No.
Caleb?
I'm going to get Torpedo Anna at some point this year. I'm going to beat her, but it's probably not in this race. But I don't like the way she's kind of come into this year. I didn't think her distaff was anything special. She's vulnerable. And there's nobody in this race as an allowance field. So this maybe isn't time to take that shot. But I'm calling my shot now that before the year's over, I'm getting that scout.
Yeah, you're gonna beat her. You're gonna beat her. You're gonna beat her in the Woodward, right? Like that's where they're gonna run her, and that you're gonna beat her in the Woodward. Like, I mean, they if in protected company versus other fillies, she's by a mile and a half the best of her class, and the only time she's really exposed when she just runs versus the boys, like she's just head and shoulders above this field.
Yeah, I mean, some people may look at Where's My Ring or something, who did come off of a pretty impressive win, but yeah, it's still kind of hard to see. Torpedo Anna has easily had her number the first 2 times they've met, so it's kind of hard to see that changing the outcomes here. So not the spot to beat her, but soon.
See, because I was thinking. I see Nick. You're saying it's the morning line, so yes, the morning line is terrible. I was thinking that I think the time to beat her is going to be in one of those once the 3-year-olds start running, kind of when she's at the end of the season, because Kenny McPeak's going to run this horse as many times as he possibly can. It's great for the sport, right? He runs his horses. So I could still see her going undefeated through like Saratoga, right? And then once we start getting to the races where maybe the 3-year-olds run in there. Maybe she kind of gets caught there, but yeah, I have no. There's just nobody in here, right? Anybody who beats her is probably gonna like, even if someone beats her at 30-1 or 40-1, probably still an overlay, like, or an underlay.
Underlying.
Like, you know, like it's just I just don't see it here. So yeah. But I thought we should at least look at those races a little bit. But one of the feature races in the entire Keeneland Spring Meet is the Maker's Mark Mile. So I figured we should probably talk about this race briefly. We covered this race on Drank and Champagne as we went ahead and we talked the Turf Pick 3. You can check that out obviously on the podcast network or on our YouTube channel. But it's the return of Carl Spackler here. Carl Spackler's installed as a 9-5 favorite. You get Integration at 3-1, 4-1 on Northern Invader. Fantastic again at 6-1. Tricari at 8-1. Silent Heart at 8-1. Double digits on the rest. When I talked about this race with Andrew, I was curious what you guys are going to think about the pace, because Brisnet it looks like it could be a fast pace, and Carl Spackler, I mean, at Churchill was sitting 5th, right, and in the poker was sitting 3 lengths off in 4th. Obviously won at Churchill, it was closer up, but in the poker when they kind of brought him back, he didn't run. He was just flat that entire time. So I definitely think this is a horse that like wants to get involved early. And I don't know. I think that could spell trouble here, because I do think that there's a bit of speed in here. I mean, I still think that this is the best horse, and this horse's probably like B effort wins here. Integration, who this race should absolutely probably set up for, I don't think wants to go this short. I mean, I think this is a horse that wants to go, a mile and a quarter ish, right? More than that. But I kind of landed on this horse as a B when I was talking with Andrew. But the more I think about it, with the expected price, right? This is your second choice on the morning line. People are going to see, the back class, right, as the grade 2 winner, ran well in that Pegasus World Cup turf. But I think this is going to be kind of sharp for Integration. So really, I only have 2 horses in here. I'm going to use Carl Spackler as my lone A. I'm going to go to a horse in the number 4 Grand Aspen as my B. And I had to really kind of squint to get here, because this is a horse that, like, it just didn't seem like they knew what they wanted to do, right? They broke his maiden on the turf going a mile in the 8th. They sent him to Kentucky Downs, ran fine at Kentucky Downs. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, this is a dirt horse. And they start running this horse on the dirt. And the horse, I mean, he runs fine, right? He ran second in the Harlan's Holiday. He won a nice allowance. Then they run him in the Pegasus, and he doesn't run a step at 15-1. So it's not like he was a no-hoper in that race, Comes back in the Fayette, and once again, just absolutely does not run a step on the grass or on the dirt. In the Clark, doesn't run a step. Finally, they put this horse back on turf, going down the hill. And the horse runs a respectable 4th. And then last time in this allowance, in an optional claimer again, going a mile, runs 4th, only beaten by 3/4 of a length. But more importantly, what I kind of notice is, right, if you're just looking at Brisnet blindly, right, you're going to see EP5, and you're going to be like, oh, this is the horse that, is going to be kind of on the, near the front end, or is going to want to be not too far off. But if you kind of look at this horse's turf tries, right, you see a horse that's kind of, sitting 6th, 5th, 4th, right, behind a couple lengths. And then you look at the return, the turf return. This is another horse that really wants to close. So I do think that if this gets really spicy on the front end, this is a horse that could be coming late. And lo and behold, who is riding but Joel Rosario, who absolutely wants nothing to do with being involved in any kind of pace early. Jonathan Thomas is very, very good in these turf races, right? He runs a small barn, but I mean, he's always firing. Um, I think that this horse can be kind of sneaky. It's 31 in the morning line. We'll see what price we get, but I'm definitely going to have exactas using the 4. I think this is definitely a horse that can run underneath, and I'm going to have at least one ticket, I think, with this 4 on it. But this is probably another race where the favorite's going to be hard to get around, and I've already spent like 6 or 7 minutes talking about it. So, Mark, what did you think here?
Yeah, I'm gonna channel my inner Caleb here, which is the fact that I've never thought much of Carl Spackler. I've always thought he was kind of a B tier. I don't know, like I just never loved the horse. He's just never the Chad that felt like the best of the A tier Chads. But he keeps booming me, and he keeps stealing my money. So I'm gonna do the Caleb, and I'm gonna double down and be really stubborn. I'm just gonna toss him for my tickets from the double Caleb, the pick 6 tomorrow, and I'm gonna try to beat Carl Spackler because why not? So Carl Spackler's gonna be on none of my tickets. Simply the fact that I don't know. I've always had this thing where I don't really love him. He's coming off a long layoff from the Breeders' Cup Mile where he really didn't do much running, although he was like second choice on the board. He was supposed to win that race and he just kind of flopped a subpar effort. And I would have loved to see kind of a prep coming into this race. So I landed on 2 other horses, and I understand where Josh is coming from. This idea that the speed's supposed to kind of come apart here, and this is a race that's supposed to melt. But I found a couple of horses in here that I think can be forwardly placed, but don't need to be on the lead and can kind of maybe trip out. And those are the 7 Silent Heart and the 9 Seminole Chief. Seminole Chief comes into this off 2 wins. Yes, they're at Gulfstream, but a horse that is going to be, they have 21 on the morning line. I don't think I get anywhere near 20 to 1 on the morning line, but this horse has taken, they finally figured out that maybe he's just really a turf horse. And his last 3 efforts have all shown really nice steps forward, at least at time form fig wise. And this mile trip seems to be kind of what he wants to do. You get the white hot hands of Dylan Davis, and I think he probably sits a nice just off the pace tracking kind of trip in here. And the other horse, Silent Heart, who I don't know if Louis is going to be back up for tomorrow. I know, obviously he took a pretty nasty spill. He had a lot of bruising. He was pretty sore. He was off all his mounts today. So we'll see if Saz, ends up on him here. But I thought that Silent Heart was the kind of horse that maybe he's a little bit class exposed in the fact of when they step him up, he doesn't necessarily fire his A effort, but he's got a little bit of an every other pattern coming to this race. And again, one of these other horses that isn't that much slower than Carl Spackler, is going to be kind of sitting just off that pace from somebody. Probably, I would imagine Northern Invader ends up on the front end here because I think they kind of have to go to the lead. But kind of sits that just off tracking trip. And if Louis is up on that horse tomorrow, I am extremely interested in him because I just, Saz on turf just seems to kind of, with these speed types, find a way to sit that perfect trip. So we'll see who ends up as the jock listed for tomorrow, but I thought somebody, I want to try to beat Carl Spackler. I've said that many a times when he's burned me, but those are their, Silent Heart and Seminole Chief for the 2 that I thought were the most interesting sort of other horses in here. Caleb, kind of interested to see where you landed because I have a feeling you're going to be somehow magically against Carl Spackler as well.
Yeah, so I kind of landed in between you guys, which seems to be my cozy place.
Recurring theme.
I am against Carl Spackler. I've lost to him a lot last year, but boy, did I have my redemption in the Breeders' Cup Mile with More Than Looks. Had a nice bet that day. So my knock on Carl Spackler is just that he seems to be at his best when he's running very close to the pace. He doesn't need the lead necessarily. I mean, he definitely doesn't need the lead, but he has a high natural cruising speed that he can just sustain, but he doesn't really have a big turn of foot in my opinion. So I think he's a horse that, kind of just gets to a good level and just kind of keeps going and going and going, and he's hard to catch. And he's gotten really lucky a lot last year by being able to track off of pretty tepid paces for the most part, and then just continue to keep going and, able to hold off some of the deep closers. When there was an honest pace in the Breeders' Cup Mile and he didn't get that cozy sit second trip, he was pretty flat. I mean, it's one thing to lose to More Than Looks and Johannes and others, but I mean, he ran pretty poor given the expectations that day. He could win this race. He's excellent at a mile and very versatile, but he's not for me at 9-5. So I saw the race similar to Josh in the sense that I thought there was a lot of speed in here. It's a little tough because there's a lot of like, I want to sit second type of speed. I mean, the way I kind of handicap the race is like Northern Invader pretty much has to go. I think he's your most likely leader. And then there's like 5 horses that all want to sit second. I can see a horse like Fantastic Again, a horse like Santorini, Carl Spackler, Silent Heart, even Seminole Chief, maybe all trying to kind of sit that pocket trip. And I think it results in what I'm hoping is going to be a swift pace, or at least a contested pace at the very minimum. So my initial reaction was going to go to Integration, but I have talked too much shit on that horse to go back and actually bet him now. So I don't. Yeah, and he also lost to Spirit of St. Louis, who like is a New York bred Chad Brown horse that like is like not even like the best row. Like he wasn't. I mean, he might have been the best horse in the race, but like this horse is not all that good. I mean, and Integration just had zero excuse for losing that race when he hit the lead, turning for home, and got run down. I do think he's best at a mile and an eighth. I don't know about a mile, but I don't think he's a mile and a half horse. So I wanted a closer, and this is kind of where I landed similar to Josh in that I don't really like Integration. I don't like Carl Spackler from the pace setup. So I wanted kind of horses that can close, but none of them are really fast enough. So I struggled with this race. I did land. I took a long look at Grand Aspen, like Josh talked about, because he does fit the race in my mind, especially with Rosario. Thomas sees fit to ship this horse from California, but for the 6-year-old horse who would need a pretty significant career top, I just couldn't quite convince myself to get there. Even if he does get a good pace setup, I think maybe a minor award is kind of his peak. So I actually ended up on the number 3 Tricari.
Yeah.
And this is a horse that I didn't think a whole lot of during his 3-year-old season. I kind of thought, all the way back to his American Turf win at Churchill, he got kind of lucky. He snuck up the fence at a huge price. He really wasn't that good. And he's kind of proven me wrong because he's shown up in every race ever since then. Formidable Man has turned out to be a nice horse. Lagano is a very nice horse. That American Turf came back to be stronger than I initially thought. He ran excellent in the Belmont Derby, beating a couple decent horses, White Palomino, loose on the lead, and then Legend of Time, an Appleby and Buick horse, who he was able to beat pretty handily. Rattled off a few more wins. Was only beaten a length and a half by Johannes, who would be a pretty significant favorite if he were to show up in this race. So in my mind, yeah, he didn't run great in the Bay Station or what is that? Bryan Station? I can't tell. He didn't run great last time at Keeneland, but that was a nuclear pace up front, and he did run into traffic from some horses that were just absolutely falling through the back of the field. So I'm kind of willing to forgive him for that effort. He was made the favorite there, so he was clearly supposed to win that race. I mean, Brilliant Birdie won that race, so he beat pretty handily 3 races back. So for me, this is a horse who's making his first start as a 4-year-old. Grand Motions got off to a hot start, showing 3 wins of his last 4 starters here. Johnny V gets back up, who was up for most of Tricari's good races. He's not a huge kick, 1-run closer in this race. He's more of a get started early and make a sustained bid. But I'm kind of hoping he can just work out the right trip here from an inside post and take that step forward as a 4-year-old, because I couldn't find any other off the pace runners I really felt strongly about. And I do think someone wins this race from off the pace who's not Carl Spackler. So that's kind of where I landed. I will say I like Mark's 9 a lot, Seminole Chief. That horse will be on pretty much all my tickets for all the reasons Mark talked about. So I agree with you there.
I have one reservation about Tricari because I tried getting there. And of course, right, I ended up on a 30-1 instead of the 8-1. Tricari's 2 worst races of his entire career both came here at Keeneland. So I just don't know if maybe he just for one reason or another doesn't like the surface. But I mean, the maiden, finished 12th by 15 lengths, and then didn't make up any ground in a race that they went 22-2, 44-4. I mean, like he should have been coming at the end in that race, and he he ran kind of even. So I don't know if it's a surface thing or if it just happens to be like just coincidence, but. 0 for 2, and like basically his 2 worst races were both here at Keeneland.
Yeah,
So
I have that marked on my form. I'm kind of choosing the position of he did have legit trouble last out. He had to check, and then he had to take up twice in that race. And the other time at Keeneland was his first career start. I'm kind of just willing to be more forgiving there. But yeah, this is kind of the make or break time. I mean, he doesn't have to win this race, but if he runs a real clunker, then you're probably right. He might not just care for the surface.
yeah, and I think he did have a virus last time too.
Oh yeah,
Manny
even
Franco.
better.
Manny Franco. Biggest virus of them all. All right. Anything else on this race? No. I did see Cobb say huge jockey upgrade for Spackler. I mean, I can't disagree with him. Going from Gaff to Pratt is a pretty large upgrade. Mark, you said downgrade. Mark, out of the 3 of us here, you like Tyler Gaffleone the least.
That is true.
You can't even say anything.
Okay, I won't say anything then. Cool.
My goodness. So whatever they'll fit in your narrative over there, Mark. I did see Russ mention that he thinks McPeak said that Torpedo Anna might run in the La Troyenne. That's on the Derby undercard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds about right.
It's Derby or Oaks. I'm pretty sure it's a Derby day.
Yeah. And Nick Seaver says I literally have $0 on one horse in the gate. I don't even know what that means. It's Rodriguez. So he has $0 on one horse? Or maybe he means like 10.
I think he means that's the only horse he doesn't have any money on in futures, I think, is what he's saying.
All others covering a lot of the field.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Oh, that's the only one he's got no money on. Oh, my goodness. That's Caleb level of just beats of epic proportions that could happen.
I'm going to accuse Jay of being my alt after that last comment, so...
Oh, Jay saying Pratt is the reason there are directions on shampoo bottles.
That's perfect.
Nick is asking if anybody's got any strong opinions on the pick 6 tomorrow. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look yet.
I haven't had a chance to fully dig into the card, so I'll have ping me on Discord tomorrow, late morning, and I'll have a better opinion.
Yeah, I haven't looked either, but that's the plan for tomorrow morning.
Cool. All right, let's move on here to this late pick 5. Keeneland starts in race 7. It's very tough,
dude. This sequence is brutal.
There's a I think there's a turf race. Is it a turf? Is it the 8th race? Is it
this maiden race and the next race are both just like I don't hit the all button. They're both just absurd.
Yeah, the 8th race I just stared, and then the feature as well, not the Lexington, the turf race. I was just like the Jenny Wiley. I have no idea, and I feel like
Jenny Wiley is just phenomenal. That is the race of the year so far. That race is just absolutely filthy.
I feel like I took the wuss way out, but we'll talk about it when we get there. But race 7, 6.5 furlongs here on the main track. We got a maiden race, and your morning line favorite is going to be the 1 Valiant Humor, and then you get 4-1 on 2 horses, In Fact and Modus Bestia. You get 6-1 on Big Truz, 8-1 on Nantucket and Zandvoort, and then you get double digits on everybody else. Mark, you already talked crap about Flavian Pratt, but he's my lone A in this spot. Inside drawn speed at Keeneland. I mean, I don't know. This is a horse that went pretty fast going at Fairgrounds. Went 21-4, 45-4 there. Ended up kind of getting caught and finishing 3rd by a length and a half. But since then, the work tab looks really good. So it looks like this is a horse that they took a little bit of time off and put it back on the work tab. Flavian Pratt gets aboard, and we've seen how speed has been. And I just think that this is probably your speed of the speed in this race. I tried looking at some of these first-time starters to see if there was going to be anything else. I mean, this 2 fact, right, has been working very, very well. But Instagram is currently hitting at 6% first time starters. And a Fleet Alex, that's another horse that does not necessarily have very precocious runners. So yeah, I just don't think that this is a horse that's set up to win early. I see Irad's getting aboard, and William Walden's very good, 15% with first time starters, but I just think that this might be a little too much to ask for this two. Um, so outside of the one, um, I I and I ended up on 2 other kind of short price horses. I thought the 8 Zandvoort um, could maybe sneakily be uh, very, very fast early, right? This is one that was sat just off the pace, but kind of faded. But one thing I will say is this is a horse that, kind of weakened last time out, and is getting Lasix this time. So, sometimes you see these horses that kind of, end up weakening down the stretch. Maybe adding the Lasix gives them just whatever they need in order to cross the line first. So I'm kind of playing the 8 here based off of improvement off of Lasix. It's a plus move for Steve Asmussen. Like seeing Jose Ortiz get aboard. And then obviously the number 12, Modus Bestia. Going at Santa Anita, going 6.5, ran very, very well. They stretched this horse out, and I think this horse wanted absolutely nothing to do with a mile and 16th. McLean's Music generally likes to go shorter. So I like to cut back on this 12, and it's got Caleb's favorite jockey currently at Keeneland in Raylu Gutierrez aboard. So I thought the 12 made a bit of sense here, but I'm gonna have that one as a B as well. So I got 1 as my lone A, and I'm gonna use the 8 and the 12 as B's. Caleb, where did you land?
We're pretty close, to be honest with you, Josh. I thought the 6, the one was the horse to beat in here, Valiant Humor. And I just kind of think with the way the track has played the last 2 days, with speed being so dominant, this horse will be really, really tough. On a fair track, I think this is a more of a spread race maybe, but from what we've seen, I think he's going to be a handful as the inside speed in here on second time out. So I'm with you. I also do like number 8, Zandvoort as well. Probably my second pick. This horse kind of goes back to one of my old school favorite Asmussen angles, which is when he has a super fast work 2 back, and usually at 4 or 5 furlongs, and then a slow 3 furlong, just kind of gallop right before a race. So he's coming in off of a nice work pattern coming into this race. The counterpoint to that is that he was stabled at Louisiana Downs for a period, and I tend to think Asmussen doesn't keep his better horses there, similar to like Chad with Monmouth or whatever else. So mixed signals here, but with blinkers on and Jose up, have to think you'll get a more aggressive ride. Lasix comes on here. Lots of things to like here at a decent price. So I also like the 8 as well. And I guess that's pretty much, where I've landed. For the same reasons as you, I looked at the 2-horse fact. The pedigree is not really there for, precociousness. The workouts look great. The barn can win first time. You do get IRAD up, so you're probably not going to get much of a value there. I'll probably be inclined to let that one beat me, to be honest. And I guess the other one you could look at maybe is the 12. I'm assuming that's probably where Mark landed, so maybe I'll let him talk.
I mean, you can if you want to. I think when you look at this race, I think Josh pretty much nailed it with kind of how I looked at it. I think Valiant Humor. One of my favorite angles to play in horse racing is these horses that show a lot of speed and then stop a little bit short first time out and their second time back, and that's exactly what Valiant Humor is here. A horse that has a ton of tactical speed. It's a Brad Cox second timer. Obviously, Brad Cox's numbers top to bottom are phenomenal, and I think Valiant Humor is your most likely winner of this race, and pretty logically so. I looked at fact for the same reasons you guys kind of all mentioned, and honestly, we were really, really similar on a lot of horses. Caleb mentioned the 12 Modus Bestia. The Baltus horse, I thought an interesting player in this race. Time form wise, your fastest fig on that debut effort. They stretched this one out to a mile and 16th, second time out. Horse showed a lot of speed and then really kind of stopped in the lane really badly. I think the cutback here is probably what this one wanted. But my real concern with the 12 is just really the draw, being drawn way outside. There's a fair bit of speed in here. There's going to be traffic problems. I don't see how this horse doesn't get floated, 4 or 5 wide around the corner. And, just on the draw alone, I think you have to be very careful, kind of how you choose your price. The one horse that nobody's talked about that I am pretty actually interested in is the 6 Bourbon Flight. Ian Wilkes trainer. Obviously, Ian Wilkes has had a really good meet so far. Joel Rosario seems to, seems fit to hop aboard. And a horse that, if you believe time form figs, that last figure on that Gulfstream Park race came back pretty massive. Horse was involved in a fair bit of pace early, and then again stopped late. Interesting player. I don't know if you get anywhere near that 20-1 just off that time form fig. You maybe get half that, I would imagine, that sort of 10 or 12-1 range. But I thought Bourbon Flight was the horse. If you get beyond the one horse and maybe a little bit of the 2, I thought was kind of an interesting player in here, kind of drawn right. I don't know what this one's run style is, obviously lightly raced, but I would imagine there's a fair bit of upside here given the pedigree.
All right. Anything else in this race? All right, let's move on here to race 8. Real quick. It looks like Cobb is saying anything to read into size on the 7 instead of the 1. Size listed on Big Truz instead of staying aboard on the 1.
I don't know what to make of that. I mean, the move from Sayers to Pratt, as far as Cox is concerned, I'm sure is pretty flat. They're going to have similar kind of stats. Maybe Big Trust is really loaded in here. I don't hate the horse, but Brian Lynch is not known for having his first time starters cranked. And we'll see if Sayers is actually riding come Saturday. So I thought Big Trust was interesting, but not at 6-1. The horse isn't interesting. Maybe at double that.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it is hard to figure, without knowing whether he had choice or what kind of went on behind the scenes, or if Size is even riding. Yeah, it's a reason maybe to take a slight pause with the 1, but it's not enough to really get me off the horse, I think.
And then Nick saying the 1, 2, 8, and 12 are the 4 logical. He thinks that 99% of pick 5 money runs through those 4. I think that
I would agree.
Pretty high, but
I think he's pretty accurate with that number. Honestly, those are, I would imagine, your top 4 for most people.
All right, let's move on. Race 8, mile and 16th on the turf. $120,000 allowance for fillies 3 years old, which have never won a race other than blah 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 blah. No one cares. And we got a full field of 12. We got 4 AEs in here. We got just absolute nonsense for this race. Caleb, I'll let you go first. Where did you land here?
Oh boy, this was a tough race. I mean, probably what I thought was the toughest race in the sequence. Although to Mark's point earlier, I thought the Jenny Wiley was also very difficult. That being said, I mean, this is you could almost make a case for every horse in this field. So kind of when I handicapped this race, kind of the first thing that stood out to me was that I just don't see a ton of speed in the race. And I don't know that I have a good read on how speed is playing on the Keeneland turf yet. It seems like it's been like you can win from anywhere, unlike the dirt, which is, very forward. So I saw the 5 as your most likely winner, but I just want no part of that horse coming off of that race. It hasn't been seen in a year, just not for me. So the horse that I think sits just off of the 5 would be the number 10, Eunomia. So this is a horse that is trying turf for the first time, but I absolutely love the turf pedigree here. Tiz the Law has been a phenomenal turf sire, getting almost 30% first-time turf winners. American Pharoah is a better turf influence than he is dirt, despite winning the Triple Crown. And this is a horse that has, ran okay on dirt. Does have a bit of maybe an every other pattern kind of going on in here with some good races mixed in with some bad races sandwiching around him. But I love the fact that does have a win at Keeneland. And that's the exact trip I'm kind of hoping and expecting him to get or her to get in this race. Kind of a second, pressing trip the whole way just off of the 5. Overtakes the 5 turning for home and can hopefully have enough of a cushion and slow the fractions down enough to be able to hold off some of the closers who very well might be better horses than the 10. I just really like the way the trip sets up for the 10. I think 20 to 1 is a crazy good price. You're getting Lasix for the first time here, and the horse is coming off a bit of a layoff, but appears to have been running well. Vicky Oliver has not had a very successful year or two, but she is one that typically does try to get some good runners at Churchill, Keeneland, and Kentucky Downs specifically, and Keeneland. So I'm kind of hoping that this is maybe one of her more well-meant runners. I love the surface switch here. And at 20 to 1, I mean, I'll pay to find out, what this horse is all about. But I kicked us off with a 20 to 1. There's 1,000 ways you can go. So, Mark, tell me about the chalk.
I hate you because that's exactly where I was going to go to. You're absolutely the worst. No, I think this is a race where I think you need coverage in here. But if you're to force my hand, it would be on the 11 El Hafara, who's the Chad. Obviously, Chad's 38% with first time in North American horses. Pratt seems fit to ride. I don't know. We haven't seen this horse since September at Chandelier. And does this horse take a big step forward? Does this horse take a big step forward moving to the Chad barn? I do find it somewhat interesting that Chad is putting this one in an allowance instead of finding a stakes race. I sort of wonder. Yeah, that's kind of what I wonder, right? Like why is this horse here versus coming back in a 3-year-old stakes race? There's tons of spots you can stick this horse in that going the same trip. I have a feeling he may not know what he has, and I think that 3 to 1 morning line is probably an underlay. Given that, I think there's other interesting horses that you can kind of you can kind of lean to in here. And I kind of ended up on a few sort of kind of, I don't know, at least for me, some really sort of interesting prices. I think you have Always Forever, the Cox horse, the 2 Maiden Breaker last out, gets the jock upgrade to Manny Franco, something I never thought I would ever say, but my God, I just said it. And right. And but this is a horse that seems to be kind of improving in form, and I should say improved in form every race, and even just a little bit tick better off that kind of 3-year-old debut at Fairgrounds. I think Always Forever is probably a major player in here. Really good pedigree, should handle the trip well. It has handled the trip, should have no issue with the trip again. And I thought Always Forever was kind of an interesting one in here. And the other one I was a little interested in, a kind of a dumb price, is the 9 horse Miss Linnell. I realize you're getting Lannery in here, who is not my favorite turf jockey. I'll throw that out there. And he hasn't had a great Keeneland meet, but if you go back to some of those races towards the tail end of this horse's 2-year-old form, they actually come back pretty decent. Ignore the Turfway Park races. I'm just going to imagine that the horse maybe just didn't like that surface, but the turf races from the fall of last year are pretty darn stout, and come back with good figures. A little bit of a step forward if this is just a surface. I thought Miss Linnell at a stupid price was really, really interesting here. But where did you go in here, Josh? Because this is a race you can literally make a case for anybody running in it.
My top pick actually ended up being Manny Franco, which just makes me disgusted. Well, so I really like Always Forever. I thought this is a horse that maybe just needed a little bit of time to kind of come around. Right, had 2 tries last year, ran second, and then took a big step forward, I think, at Fairgrounds, and was kind of close to that pace. And I'm pretty sure Fairgrounds was actually playing the closers most of the meet on the turf. So I thought that it wasn't necessarily like a very very super fast pace, right? They went 23-2 and then 49-3, but I thought that this was a horse coming off that maiden breaker, seeing a ship. You get Manny Franco, who apparently has been riding really well for Brad Cox, right? They're 35% the last 2 months. But I thought that at least this is a horse that is going to be involved early, and without there being a bunch of pace in here, I see I see this horse sitting in like third, fourth ish, and maybe being able to get a first run on some of these horses. So I thought he was very very interesting. My top pick in here. I like some prices. The one, Poppy the Princess. I thought this horse was very interesting because if you look at this horse, I think went backwards as soon as it switched to the synthetic. And if you look at those races, those turf races, I mean, broke her maiden first time out, first asking going 2 turns, right, which is pretty tough as a 2-year-old, and progressed forward pretty well at Keeneland, and then maybe took a bit of a step back at Churchill, but that Keeneland race is probably the best race this horses run. Back on this Keeneland surface, right? We've seen a lot of these Turfway Park horses run very, very well to start this meet here at Keeneland. So maybe gets a little bit of that poly pop switching surfaces, gets Lasix for the first time here. So yeah, I thought this horse was pretty interesting here. Coming back to the turf after what I thought was a pretty successful 2-year-old turf campaign. And then the number 12 Birkin Girl is basically kind of the same story, right? This is a horse that they switched to synthetic, kind of ended up going backwards with the switch to the synthetic, and now is coming back here to turf. Maybe a little concerned about the distance, right? Twirling Candy's generally more of a mile, less than a mile type pedigree, but this is a horse that broke its maiden going a mile at Churchill Downs, right? So and this was actually a horse that improved once getting the 2 turns, right? The two turf sprint starts weren't that great. So once again, this is one that's getting back to I think the right surface. My only concern is maybe the distance, right? And is going to be posted out in the 12 post, right? But this is another one that I think is going to be involved early. I thought the 12 made a lot of sense. I took a look at what looks to be the morning line favorite in the 5, Burning Pine. This is the Wesley Ward horse. They ship over to Ascot. But I mean, I'd be more interested. This is a horse coming back and going 5.5, right, on the turf, not necessarily going a mile and 16th. I don't know. It's kind of I like when I see Wesley stretching a turf horse out. That's like when I see Baffert putting the horse on the turf, right? Like, I just I get all kinds of suspicious. But like Baffert, I mean, every once in a while Wesley gets one that wins. My only hesitation on completely throwing this horse out is the lack of speed in this race. I mean, this is a horse that showed speed going 4.5, right? This is a horse that has the pedigree, should be able to get the distance. Maybe, getting Lasix for the first time, I don't know, maybe this horse does want to go, the 2 turns. I don't know. I have a question mark on it. Might make my tickets as a B. But honestly, the only other horses I kind of want to talk about, I think if the 13 and the 14 draw in,
Yep.
I think both of them need to be on all tickets. Because honestly, I think the 14, if the 14 draws in, is probably my top pick. I think that this is a legit horse, right? Look at that breeding. Mendelssohn on top, more than ready on the bottom. I mean, this is a horse that I think finally started to figure out here at Gulfstream, has been improving since, and I think this would be a really, really great spot for this horse. Needs some help to get in. Same thing with the 13, Table Flirt. Broke its maiden at Gulfstream going a mile and 1/8. and then they tried the Appalachian, but actually this horse isn't going to get in here because this horse just ran a couple days ago. So
Well, the horse is entered in the spot. This wasn't a multi-enter. So I'm seeing that in the last 5 years, Bill Mott has only had turnbacks 2 times. Now, none of them hit the board, but this is a really kind of crazy move for Mott. And I really wonder, is this horse? I thought this horse was extremely interesting, the 13 table flirt. And I really wonder, is this horse maybe live? That's an odd move for Bill Mott. It's interesting to see Jose named on this one. I don't know what happened in the Appalachian, but I thought table flirt was really interesting in here.
I mean, you really think he's going to run him on that short?
I
that
highly
short
doubt
rest?
it.
I don't know, but normally when they're co-entered, you see an also enter date on top. There's none for this. So why would you re-enter this horse? I'm assuming there's a fee associated to do so. If you just ran the horse a few days ago, I would assume this horse is actually meant to run here, which is
He probably was entered not knowing what they were going to do with the Appalachian on Saturday. If they were going to cancel it, run it on the dirt, he wanted to have a backup option, so kind of entered.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay, maybe.
I don't know.
But yeah, that's all I had for this race. Any horses you guys wanted to get back to?
Yeah, there was one or two. I mean, like I said, we're literally making a case for every horse in the field. Pretty much every horse that y'all talked about, I have written down in some form or fashion. The two that I might want to highlight quickly, one of which is the 7, the Dear Louise. This is a Mike Stidham, Godolphin, Ben Curtis. Ben Curtis has been extremely hot to start Keeneland so far. And you got to kind of get past his last race, assume maybe he just needed the race off the layoff. I don't know what happened, but it's too bad to be real. So it's encouraging. There's no drop in class. They're not putting him in for a tag. But you go back to the fact that he does have a win at Keeneland in October 24th there. And, it was at a mile and, or not a win, I'm sorry, a third by 1, but a good race at Keeneland there with a good time form figure that came in October of her 2-year-old season. And if you just kind of assume she needed that race, if she steps forward off of that October race, I mean, she'll be a handful here. And at 30-1, that's just a silly price if you ask me. So I did want to talk about the 7, and then the other one I wanted to address quickly is okay, not really a price here, but the horse to her immediate outside, the number 8. Wasn't really sure what to. Mark Cassidy is not a guy I associate with bringing in European shippers. But this horse was dismissed at 15-1 in a 14-horse field at Galway and just romped. Yeah, I don't think that was a great field. But Mark Cassie's been hot. He's got 3 wins from 11 starters and, over 50% on the board. Jose is named to ride here, who's been up for a lot of those wins and has been riding awful well himself. So, yeah, I mean, they're like the way this horse has been working going into this race. Yeah, adds Lasix here. 9-2, not a crazy good price or anything. But, if you're telling me like I get to choose between like the 5 and the 8, for example, or possibly even the 8 or the 11, I mean, I might be more inclined to take the 8 at what I hope would be a better price.
Yeah, Jay was asking about the 8, and then Cobb's also saying Godolphin owned at 30-1. He is hammering that. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I think some of these are just really bad lines, but we'll see.
Well, that's the thing. I think on the 5, like, what are you betting the 5 on besides the fact that Wes Ward is the trainer? Like, what has this horse done to justify being the morning line favorite? Like, is this just terrible Keeneland lines, or
I think this 5 is going to go off at like 6 or 7-1. Honestly, I don't think this horse is your favorite, and I don't think he's anywhere near 7-2.
Cool. See, honestly, if that's the price though, like I'm at least a little bit interested, only because of the fact that this race is completely devoid of speed. And at least if you look at the breeding on this horse, right, this is a horse that should get 2 turns, right? This isn't like your typical, Wes Ward,
but
Air Force One or whatever on the top.
If you want speed, don't you want to go to like Oyman or the 10? Like, isn't that the horse you go to if you want a speed horse? Like, I mean, I realize that the 5's coming out of shorter, but like, I just don't get it at all.
You just don't get Wes Ward. The conservative ascot. They call him the conservative ascot for a reason.
Yeah, I would love him if he came in a sprint. I'd be interested in her, but in a route, I think she's kind of a toss.
You mean the horse that's the trainer that's 1 for 11 on this meet? Got it. Cool. Go on.
Look, I didn't give him the nickname. That's just what people call him. Right? My buddy Bert from the FIFA Discord. I forget what he was talking about, but he was like, I hate when people give themselves nicknames, right? He's like, I can't just start telling people, call me Big Dick Bert, right? And everyone just start calling me that. And so since then, I've literally just started calling him Big Dick Bert, just because I'm like, well, I guess you can, like, but anything else on this race?
Tough race. It's a really tough race. I think in this sequence, it's one of 2 races you really want to have a lot of coverage in.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, race 9, the Lexington, that has absolutely nothing to do with Derby points at this point, or at least no immediate ramifications. And we have a field of 9 here. Your morning line favorite is going to be the 7 Prater. You get 7-2 on Gosker, 9-2 on Bullard, 6-1 on Rolando and Hypnus, 8-1 on Touchy, double digits on the rest. Mark, where did you land?
I kept it really, really simple in this race. I didn't know what to do with Prater, a horse that clearly has a ton of speed, quite a fair bit of speed. It's going to be forwardly placed, but I really kind of wonder is he more that like sort of desperate need the lead type, and all of a sudden he's stepping up in class and is running into other speed types, and it doesn't go so well for him in here. So I think my take is I'm okay, kind of. I don't know. I don't want to say just like tossing Prater, but at least fading Prater. I think the horses I'm most interested in are the 3 Bullard and the 6 Gosker. I think somebody like Gosker has just got a lot more speed than Prater, and is also drawn inside. And I think somebody like Gosker just kind of goes to the front end. It has better figs than what Prater has put up so far. I think Prater has to kind of take a step forward to run with somebody like Gosker. So if you're thinking, a race that I think is somewhat devoid on pace, or devoid of pace on paper at least, I think Gosker is kind of the horse you go to. And then I thought Bullard, the 3, was also really interesting in here. A horse that the debut and the Bob Hope were both really nice races. I don't think there's that San Vicente was any sort of disgrace. Ran a fairly nice 3rd in there. Debut race, I guess technically 2nd race of the 2025 season for this one. But is a player in here off the figs on the last 2. And so I kind of landed on I'm probably get a little cute in here and try to get around Prater, and I use somebody like Bullard and Gosker as my 2 in here, and spread out in other races in the sequence.
Caleb?
Yeah, I agree and Mark on the principal contenders in here. I just disagree on how I view them. I do think Prater is the horse to beat in here. This is a horse that caught an off track in his debut and came out real slow, got clobbered at the break, got up for 3rd against Ferocious, who just kind of freaked on the off track that day, and has kind of continued to establish a base level of form for what he put up that day, and then really just came out at Aqueduct and Gulfstream and just improved and improved. Probably particularly noteworthy is 2 back at that maiden race at Aqueduct. He actually beat Sovereignty, who we all know went on to win the Fountain of Youth, then run 2nd in the Florida Derby, and is one of the more fancied horses in the Derby this year. This is a horse that just continues to take steps forward, continues to progress. 2nd off the layoff here, he paired up with his career top last out. I'm expecting a move forward here in this 2nd off the layoff move. I think Chad probably knows he doesn't have a Derby horse on his hands, but he does have a stakes horse, and the timing and the schedule kind of just lined up pretty well for this race for him. It's better than trying to rush him to, go to the Florida Derby or the Wood or anything else, just, off a big layoff like he would have had to have done given the way this horse has come along. So I just think he's probably the best horse in here. Gosker is fine. I'm a little cold on him because The horse he beat last out, Pitkin, came back to flop as a pretty short price 2 days ago. There's no figure posted for that race yet, so I don't know if he regressed or not, but he ended up running like 4th or 5th, and as a maiden, just was kind of hoping to see more from him than that. Bullard, he's fine. I don't know what kind of trip he gets on the stretch out or how he handles 2 turns here, but I think 9-2 is a fair enough price. I have no issue with him at all. He did beat Maddock at Road 2 back, so that's who I don't think a ton of, but he would be a player in here to be sure, probably the favorite. So I do think Bullard is a horse that merits some respect. And if I was going to take a crazy flyer, I'd look at a horse like the 2 Bracket Buster. I can't believe I ended up on 2 Vicky Oliver horses tonight, but this is a horse that did break the maiden at Keeneland at this trip, and then went into the street sense where he was probably just in over his head. But that street sense has come back to be an extremely productive race, which is a little bit unusual. But Sovereignty, Tistastic, Sandman, all going to be in the Kentucky Derbies, the top 3 finishers, all going on to sort of frank that form a little bit. We'll need to, it's a tough spot to make a return from a big layoff here, coming off of a 6 or 7 month break. But that's one that if I was going to spread for a price, that's the only one I could really make an argument for. But for me, Prater is probably a single A. And then I might have 1 or 2 underneath as B's or C's.
So have you made a case for 2 Vicky Oliver / Manny Franco horses?
Is it 2 Manny Franco? I think it's only 1 Franco, but 2 Vickies.
I was like 1 Franco with 2 Vickies. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And look, my guess is that both Rolando and Touchy are going to scratch in this race since they both ran in that Lafayette. I had looked at Rolando. I thought he was interesting on the stretch out, but then, he ran that Lafayette. Didn't look all that great, and they're not going to run him on that short rest. I took Gosker as my top pick. I just think that he's a little faster earlier. Outside of that, I mean, I think you're right, Caleb. You probably got to look at a horse like, if you're not going to take the other chalk, the price I kind of like in this race is the 2 Bracket Buster, right? And for all the reasons you kind of mentioned, right? This is the horse that broke its maiden at this trip here at Keeneland, and did it on the front end, showing speed. And then in the street sense, kind of, I don't know if he kind of got shuffled or just missed the break, but didn't have all that clean of a start. And I think he's going to have a bit of an easier time getting a clean start here. Only going to be 7 horses, so interested to see how he runs. Vicky Oliver always points to this meet, she's going to want to be at the Lexington Horse Club of America or Thoroughbred Club of America, at having dinner like she does and talking about how she won this race. So I like the 2. But yeah, I'm going to have most of my money going through the 6 Gosker in this race. Anything else here? All right. Race 10, the Jenny Wiley. Grade 1 for fillies and mares, 4 years old and up. And we have a field of 9 in this race. And I'll be honest, guys, I took the wuss way out. My top picks are going to be the 1 Excellent Truth transferred to Chad Brown's barn. I think it's like 5-2 on the morning line. For some reason, Brisnet's got like no information on this horse. I don't know what the heck happened. Probably a printing error or something. But shades of Sister Charlie here a little bit. It was another horse that Chad imported from France and won this race with. Now, I think Sister Charlie had a start in the U.S. before the Jenny Wiley, but I think I read something crazy like Chad Brown's won this race like 5 out of the last 6 times it's run or something like that. So, Excellent Truth looks really good in this spot, running second to Mask the Savane last time out, and that horse came back to win off that start. I think that if anybody's going to beat this horse, it's probably going to be another first time in America horse, which is I think the 2 Choicia here. If you're looking on time form, I think Choicia is like 1 point slower possibly than the other one. So I kind of feel like if you like one, you got to like the other one a little bit. So those are kind of my top two picks coming in here. The only real American-based horse I liked in this race was the 8 Sacred Wish. Um, and I think Sacred Wish has got a couple of nice starts the last two times out. Was a little bit unlucky, I think, to finish second in the last race to Be Your Best, who's also in this race. But I mean, Be Your Best. Caleb, I don't know. Maybe this is me being a little presumptuous, but I think Be Your Best got a little bit of a candy ass trip, I think, last time out in the Pegasus. So I really do think that Sacred Wish probably ran the best race in that out of that race. So yeah, I kind of like Sacred Wish coming back here. Running off the pace, which I think is a little bit more conducive to the turf here. And I mean, you got at least a little bit of speed here in Kehoe Beach, right? Speaking of Wesley Ward horses that are going to route, Kehoe Beach has got one way to go, right? And Frankie Dettori's got bills to pay, and he knows he's only got one way to go, right? And so they're going to the front, right? And Be Your Best is going to have to be right up with him. So yeah, I just think that if the 1 or the 2 don't win, the only other horse I think that might have a shot in here might be Sacred Wish coming from off the pace a little bit. But that's all I got in this race. Caleb, I'm interested to see how you see it.
This is a race that I could probably single as easily as I could go all because I think that it's one of those races that as you start like peeling back the layers and asking the what if questions, like every horse has a way to win this race, if you ask me. When I first looked at this, I'm like, Kehoe Beach, yeah, absolutely not. And then I kind of went through the whole race and I'm like, who really goes with this horse early? And you want to talk about candy ash trips. I mean, this horse has had soft fractions in like 3 of her last 4 races. And, but the problem is she might get that again, so I don't know that Irad's going to get too aggressive on the 5 in here. I think he's more keen to sit a length off, and Frankie's going to open her up like he always does. I mean, Kehoe Beach, I think, is a player in here, as much as that kills me to say. For me, I mean, the horse that I was probably the most interested in is actually the number 6, Jabara. So one of the European invaders that you didn't go towards, Josh. Roger Varian is a phenomenal trainer. I mean, one of the best, across the sea. The fact that he, sends this horse in here, I think speaks a lot. The Godolphin owned. Rosario gets up, which is fine. And if you just look at the company she's been keeping, clearly she kind of needed the last race off the layoff, and also synthetic's not really her game. But her turf form, I mean, Rakia has come out to win a stakes race, here. She shipped in and won a couple of stakes races here. She has multiple times she's run up against Porta Fortuna, Rogue Millennium. She's been against Soprano, who came here to run second, I think, in last year's Queen Elizabeth, I think it was. Pearls and Rubies, just really good horses. I mean, she's been keeping some super legitimate company. I think she stays a mile, even though she's been primarily campaigned at 6 or 7. And she's one that I can make a case for of kind of stepping forward here. Second start off the layoff, second start as a 4-year-old, and just keeping some pretty good company in here. I look at the horse like the number 1, and I'm just skeptical. I don't know. I think it's an insult to Sister Charlie to get Sister Charlie vibes on this horse. I mean, because she hasn't really done anything. I mean, she won a handicap 2 back, I guess. But like she's coming in as a 5-year-old. She's had 4 races in 500 days. And the work tab is extremely short. I'm really shocked Chad is running her in this race off of just 5 works. Normally you'll see something dating back to January for a horse like this. So I'm just really skeptical of the 5-year-old mare who sold for, 1.7 million as a, horse and training sale. And then, ships in here. I mean, clearly the expectations are there. Definitely. But for me, I'm just a little bit unsure that the performance is going to be there off the big layoff, off of a bit of a short work tab. I'll take the wait and see approach for me personally. So she could win this race, but I think there's so many interesting places you can go in here that I'm just really reluctant to go to a 5-2 horse that I can poke a little bit of holes into. So for me, there are some other prices I want to talk about, but we'll see where Mark went first.
Do you know who bought the one, Caleb?
I could probably look. No, I don't. Resolute Racing.
Yeah. So if it's not Rapoli, it's.
Oh yeah. Don't Stewart.
Mark, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, I kind of toe the line between the two of you guys. I look at this race, and this is, to me at least so far, the race of the year. This race is just super deep, a million ways to go. I think a couple of people, I think Nick had made mention of this. That this race is just so good, and this is a absolutely phenomenal version of this race. I'm going to loan a Excellent Truth. This is a horse that I saw was in the Chad barn, and I thought, oh man, this horse is very, very, very cool. I know Caleb is kind of dunking on the horse because the wins have been a little bit not at the level you'd like to see for this kind of horse with those sort of levels of expectation. But I thought that last race, that pre-Rothschild, was really good. Master Sovereign is a really talented horse who won that race. That Deauville race is really well thought of. A lot of really good quality comes out of that. So I thought Excellent Truth just to me was sort of the class of the field. I think there's a lot of other ways you can go. I was disappointed that Josh wasn't all in, dump the 401k on Be Your Best, because I mean that horse is so Josh that it's just absolutely shocking. But no, I thought for me, Excellent Truth is the horse that I'm most interested in a sequence where I think a lot of people are going to be spreading. I want to be kind of cute and more aggressive in races where people are going to spread. So I'm going to have probably 90% of my money in this sort of pick 5 sequence going through Excellent Truth, and then sort of spreading out with some of the other names that you guys have mentioned, horses like, Be Your Best, Kehoe Beach, horses like how do we say it? Choice Row, the 2, and Sacred Wish as well. I think my second choice is probably Sacred Wish. I thought that I think this is the right trip for this one, but no, I think most of my money, probably like 90%, is going to go through Excellent Truth.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, part of my reluctance to go towards Excellent Truth at what I assume will be a fairly short price. I mean, in addition to, what I don't just trust her necessarily, but it's also, I just thought there was a lot of really interesting horses in here.
Oh, totally.
And I don't, I'm on the record as I don't really believe in using European time form figures to compare to time form US figures. I get that they're supposed to be on the same scale. I just don't ever think they're
not.
Too many Europeans come here and just win that weren't fast enough to win on paper. So I concede that I don't really treat them at face value. But, if you do, I mean, Excellent Truth is not that fast, and really none of the Europeans are all that fast. Either they were not be in the superfecta if you're going off those figures. So obviously we know that's not true. But for me, I mean, I just thought there was, a horse that had, a slow figure that I actually like is the number 4, Vina Aranya, who, I think I watched that race. Maybe were we there for that weekend? We may have been, or maybe that was Travers' weekend actually. So maybe it was not. But I remember this horse because I mean she took a ton of money to go off as the favorite, and we just got lost early in a race that was pretty much dominated on the front end by the horses that ran second and third, and she just had an unbelievable closing kick. I get that the fractions are coded red. It was a fast pace, but the race held together, so it's not like she was passing tired horses. The horses that were 1-2 finished 2-3. I just thought she put in a huge run there. She'll certainly need to get a lot better. That was literally a maiden race. But she was also third by less than a length in a Group 3 back in Ireland. She clearly likes a mile on the turf and has a devastating late kick. Rispoli gets up, which I think is interesting. 30-1 is a crazy price. 30-1, I'll find out if she can run a little bit. So she's one that I thought was kind of interesting at a bit of a price. And then I don't remember if anyone talked about the 9 no-show Sammy Joe. But that's another one who is just a super consistent, super progressive type. Once they got her going, a little further after that one debut race, she's basically a nose away from being undefeated. And that nose came to Be Your Best, who, regardless of what you think of the horse, I mean, it is a good standard for what a grade 2, grade 3 kind of turf horse in America is. We know that's what she can do. That's about probably her ceiling. So, I'm a little bit less inclined to go towards her because I feel like with 18 starts, we kind of know how good she is and she might be a little bit exposed. Whereas a horse like No Show Sammy Joe, only with 6 career starts and improving in essentially every single one by, incremental improvement. She's one that I think could be a bit of a play spoiler here. It does have Manny Franco, so I'm officially on my second Manny Franco horse now. But I think she's one that is also kind of interesting on the American side of things. So again, kind of like I said earlier, I think if somebody said I'm singling Excellent Truth, I think that's fine. I mean, if somebody said I'm singling Kehoe Beach, I think that's fine. If somebody said I'm going all, I think that's also fine, because depending on your opinion here and in the rest of the sequence, I think there's very different ways you can play this, both of which kind of have their merits.
Anything else you guys want to talk about in this race? Nick's saying he likes to add 5 to 10 to the European time form numbers, and he seems like they work better.
I find that relatively accurate. I think when you get some of them, like when you get ARC winners or Dubai Figs, they do come back at upper 120s. I don't know that you add figure points there necessarily, but in general, I think that's a good rule of thumb.
No, I agree, but it's hard when you see 3 horses that all come out of Europe with massive variance in their figures. So, like, how do you compare something like the 1 to the 6? Like, when the horse is 20 points faster, but I don't disagree with Caleb. I think that could the 6 win? Of course, of course that course could win. So, it's hard. I think the pace dynamics and the intra race pace dynamics so much affect those time form figures that sometimes, you're like, 5 to 10, but sometimes it's more like 20. So, it's hard.
All right. Payoff leg, race 11, 7 furlongs. On the main track, $50,000 allowance race. We got a full field of 12 with a couple of AEs. Your morning line favorite is going to be the 8 Sherbini at 3 to 2, 7 to 2 on Madeline's Promise, 9 to 2 on Zagrata. You get 6 to 1 on Black Ginger, but it looks like being AE, 8 to 1 on Autumn Rhythm, double digits on everybody else. Caleb, who are you going to be live to in this pick 5 and is going to come up just a little short for yet another 4 out of 5 to start your Keeneland meet?
I am struggling to figure out. Okay, never mind. I was trying to figure out how the 8 actually gets into this race, because she's a maiden special debut and then is running nothing but stakes races, and she's in a starter allowance. So as it turns out, her maiden race was actually an RNA for auction horses that didn't sell for a certain price. So that's kind of the way she sneaks in. But I think 8 is the best horse in the race, but you already know I'm not going to use this horse because she seems like she's a closer and a deep closer at that. And speed has been extremely strong. And B, this is the softest spot Cox could ever find to run this horse back. That is so suspect that off a maiden win, he throws her in the premier fillies 2-year-old stakes races in the Schuylerville and Spinaway, the Alcibiades at Keeneland, and then, gives her one more run in the Rags to Riches just for fun, and loses to her stablemates in basically all of those. Good Cheer, who's your Oaks favorite, and then Immersive twice, who probably would have been your Oaks favorite if she was running. And it's just, and then she comes back in this peasant race with a bunch of I don't understand it, and therefore I don't trust it. And until I understand it, I can't use that horse, especially as a 1-run closer, or what has mostly been a 1-run closer anyway. Even though I'll concede that by far the best horse in the race. And I'm sorry, it's Cassie, not Cox, but point being, the point still stands. That being said, I'm going to the other logical horse in this race, in my opinion, which is the number 6, Madeline's Promise, simply because even though this is a pretty big field, I couldn't really find any speed. If you look at Brisnet, I don't think there's an E4 or higher in this race. I guess we have an EP4, which is the 13, who may not even get in. And then, there's just no speed in this race. So I'll take the number 6, who in her last 3 starts or 4 starts really has made the lead. albeit she's got away with some paces on the slow side in a couple of those starts, including in her maiden claiming win. I don't think it's that bad. I mean, she was up in the Devona Dale against, La Cara and Ballerina d'Oro, who both won next out and are going to be in the Oaks. So I think that was maybe a stronger race than it looked on paper. Dale Romans is having a fine start to the meet. He's very good at sprint for whatever that's worth. I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into those kind of peculiar stats, but he is 33% with a positive ROI there. Horse is coming in off a bullet workout, should be controlling speed in here. I love the cutback from 1 mile to 7 furlongs. I'm always a big fan of cutting back at this kind of odd distance of 7 furlongs. So for me, I want the 6 the most, and I'll probably have 1 or 2 horses behind her. And I'm okay with this 8 beating me because I do not trust this placement whatsoever.
Mark.
I hate how much I agree with Caleb, but my God, he just like basically sang my book here. I don't trust the 8 at all. I think Madeline Promise is probably your lone speed in this race. I don't know who else goes with her. It is the most interesting horse in the race. I don't know how some of these there's so many off the pace horses in this race that I'm really interested in that I think are interesting horses that are kind of cool. I just don't know how they set up to kind of finish. But I'll throw 2 out that I thought were prices that I were interested in that I don't think I've seen enough of them to justify that like they're a 1-run closer only. They may be able to sit in that sort of just off the pace trip and fire late. So those 2 horses, the 5. So for Ken McPeak, who's a horse that they ran 4 times on the turf, and couldn't quite figure this one out, and then they threw this one on dirt and the figs popped, and albeit on a sloppy fairgrounds track, but just off the pace, and I thought that was a fairly decent effort, albeit there was no pace in that race early. So where does this one sit tactically? I don't really know, but I think it's a horse at 15-1 that's one you kind of have to take note of. The other one is the 7 Talent Show, who if you've been following Keeneland so far this meet, you've seen the dirty little pig boy angle being absolutely phenomenal. Horses that have come out of any of these synthetic track, be it at Turfway, be it at Gulfstream Park, prep races, and then have showed up at Keeneland, have been winning at really, really high percentages. We saw a couple of them today that didn't make any sense, but they come off a synth race and they pop and they go crazy here. I thought the 7 Talent Show was an interesting horse. That last race, I don't know where it really came from, but it was a pretty nice step forward. Again, this is a horse that probably needs a little bit of a setup. It was a bit of a sort of paceless affair at Turfway, but this horse is going to get a setup, and these types of horses have sort of been winning. So I agree with Caleb. I think Madeline's Promise is the horse to beat in here. I don't trust the 8, but I thought the 5 and the 7 at prices were a bit interesting.
I agree with you guys. I am on the 6, Madeline's Promise, as an A. I'm also going to use the 2, Autumn Rhythm. Inside Drawn, I thought that maybe the slight stretch out going an extra furlong maybe would show a little bit more speed. Broke its maiden here at Keeneland, so getting back to Keeneland here, Inside Drawn, I thought was interesting in this spot. Fading the 8, just like you guys. The only other horse I'm going to use is the 11, Melly Mel here, for Melanie Giddings. Jose Ortiz sees fit to ride here. And this is a horse that, is shown a little bit of ability. I think is going to need to take a step forward here, but broke its maiden pretty impressively at Gulfstream Park by 7 lengths, win on Lasix, win off Lasix for a stakes race at Gulfstream Park, and is coming back here on Lasix. So this might just be a horse that needs Lasix. I think this is going to be a much, much deeper spot for her. But I don't know. The fact that Jose's getting aboard here just kind of set some alarm bells off a little bit. Melanie Giddings doesn't run many horses, but her horses tend to be pretty live when she does run them. And yeah, I don't know. Just something about this horse, it just kind of, I had some alarm bells going off, and I'm pretty sure, I'm pulling it up now. I thought this horse looked good on optics, if I'm incorrect. Yeah, this is a horse that's a kind of a small kind of Q1 square on the optics plot in the standard plot, and is in Q2 as a square in the regular plot. And so I think that if you wanted to bet a horse like the 8, you wanted to bet someone coming from off the pace, I actually think a horse like the 11 is going to get first jump. And I, at least looking at optics, it doesn't look like there's that big of a difference between the closing speed of both the 11 and the 8. So I thought that this was one that, would be a little bit interesting in here, obviously at a pretty large price. So I'll take a shot here with the 11 Melly Mel, but I'm going to have most of my money through the 6 Madeline's Promise and the 2 Autumn Rhythm. Nick's saying this race stinks. The 8 may get the lead.
I would be
we wouldn't be
shocked
surprised.
if I would be shocked if the 8 gets. I would be shocked if the 8 gets the lead. You're really telling me Arad's going to go to the? I mean, if the 8 gets the lead, I want even less of the horse than I wanted before. So
I don't know. Caleb's not. He's not going to put that out of question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the 8 can get the lead here, but you are getting a monumental jockey upgrades.
Anything else on this race you guys want to talk about?
Now you got surprisingly a little bit, but yeah, you covered both of the horses I kind of liked underneath, which are the 2 and the 7. So I'm good.
All right. Anything else this weekend? You guys playing the contest, or are you guys just going to try and qualify?
I think I'm going to try to qualify. If I don't qualify, I probably won't buy in, but I'll definitely be looking at this pick 5 sequence. I think this was a kind of a must play. I think I shouldn't say must play, but there's a lot of value here to be had. I think it's a really great sequence. I'll definitely be playing the Keeneland sequence. Would love to get into the G1 Gamble.
I don't even remember why I made that alert, but
I would love to get the G1 Gamble, which Caleb and I have been trying to get to for the last 2 days, unsuccessfully. Although we've had some, we got some good runs in there, but you haven't quite gotten it done yet.
Caleb's got some bullets, though. You got some bullets to fire, possibly. Here,
I got some bullets. I'll definitely be involved all weekend, basically. Tomorrow I'll jump into a full Keeneland card contest. I don't know. I tend to think that the cash contests are better than the qualifiers. It seems like qualifiers, they pay less out usually, so that you have more people that stab bombs. And then when there's a 54-1 2 days in a row, you end up getting snake bitten twice. So I'm probably more inclined to do cash. And then if I end up in the top 2, 3, or 4, I might just buy in depending on what I think of the card. And I've almost made enough this week to buy in anyway. So we'll see how that goes. If not, then I'm definitely just gonna probably do a contest, on that Saturday anyway, and then just live bankroll, pick 5s and stuff like that. So I'll be around. Pick 6 tomorrow for sure is going to get significant action.
True.
The double carry is going to be on Maker's Mark Day is going to be really nice. So yeah, I mean it's going to be a good weekend. I'm looking forward to it. No Santa Anita this week, but I'm glad we have Keeneland.
All right, that's going to do it for us here on The Wrong Lead. Check us out at ontherwronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I am at Cherry Drank. Mark is at 2 Turns. Caleb's at Caleb WVU. Episode of Drinking Champagne covering the Turf Pick 3 is out. And then tomorrow night we'll have another episode of You've Got to Be Shot 10 in Me, taking a look at the late Pick 3 at Shot 10. Yeah, good luck, everybody, and let's make some money.
Twelve! Let's go!